Devar. Okay. I'm even messing that up, man. So, why don't you introduce yourself, man? I appreciate you. Right quick, man.
Peace and blessings. I go by Mikhail Corbin Yahoo. Said my man Roy and I go back some time.
Yeah. How long has it been, man? It's been like
over a decade.
It's been over
Easy.
a decade, man.
Easy.
Like this
Yeah,
dude been
easy.
putting in work, man. Uh, some people will say about my dude is that he comes from the Hebrew Israelite context of things, man. And I just thought it was just very intriguing to have this dude on the show with me as we talk about different perspectives. Also, man, I wanna bring some people on the show, man, that comes from the European lens of saying that the Jews are the so people, yeah, the white people, that's in Israel right now. You know what I'm saying? It's another thought out there that says the black people in America are the chosen people, man. And scattered abroad, man. And so I just wanted to talk to y'all, man, and I just want to talk about this Charlottesville thing. Yeah, man, Charlottesville is what we have to talk about, and it's some things that's going on in this country. It's some things that's going on in this country, bro, that the church has to must talk about and cannot shy away from these topics that need to be addressed.
Yes, sir.
Addressed.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? So what we doing, y'all know, y'all listening to Perfectly Flawed. So the Perfectly Flawed always come with the controversy, man. So I gotta have a guest that's controversial. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is, man. So with that being said, man, right off top, man, can you brief us on the Charlottesville stuff, man, from what you know about it and your perspective, and then we're gonna tie it in on how so-called black people are dealing with that and what's the connection to that. So I'm gonna be asking my dude some questions as he just lays out the outlet, and some of y'all may or may not know what's going on. Come in whenever you're ready, bro.
So this past weekend, starting Friday night, there was a rally of over, I do believe, 20-something white nationalist identity groups. And
right.
That was something that was in response to some moves that have been made in the South, particularly in where a lot of Confederate monuments have been taken down.
Got you.
Right?
So let's keep in mind the context is that this group is responding off of what they feel like needs to be preserved. Yeah, their culture is being attacked, so therefore they're on some self-preservation type of stuff. So when you see them being angry and bothered and agitated, they really feel like there's an agenda that's taking them out of the equation. Matter of fact, one of the chants was saying something like that. They said something like blood and soil, and another one was saying, "You won't replace us." It was
speaking
something
to the Ashkenazi Jew.
Yeah, it was saying, speaking to the Ashkenazi Jew, that you won't replace us. And I thought that was very telling of the story. Continue with your thoughts on that, man.
Right. So Richard Spencer of the alt-right, was one of the main organizers with some other, organizations as well.
Right.
They're really seeking solidarity and unity, unifying around a nationalist consciousness. And that simply means that they're identifying with a nation of people, that of being of European ancestry. And so, they feel America is a European country, the United States of America is. And so they're really rallying around the administration of Donald Trump, and really like a reaction to what took place with the Barack Obama administration.
Right.
But what we have to keep in context is this is orchestrated. This isn't like coincidence. Oh, we got a black man on. This is strategy. This is chess.
This is a strategic move. Matter of fact, in order to gather that many people, you cannot be strategic with it. And I think a lot of times people don't understand that the white supremacist groups and white supremacy is a strategic situation. When you talk about redlining, when you talk about abortions, you talk about planted parenthoods in particular neighborhoods. When you talk about all these things, we keep on thinking of it as a happenstance. And this is a strategic plan. Now, with that being said, now this brother got an interesting view on what's taking place. He, from a genetic standpoint, I want you to share why would the so-called Europeans, especially the people of this mind frame, react in this type of way.
Right. So Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, peace be upon her, she's an ancestor now, wrote a book called The ISIS Papers, Keys to the Colors. And she talks about how, how this is genetic survival. Okay, so basically, the European is a minority globally. Okay, so
now people don't understand that concept. You mean the
so
European is a...
They are some of the least amount of people who populate the earth globally. Okay? So when you take, let's say, Asian people together, Asian have over 1 billion people, right? Africans are over 1 billion people.
Right.
I mean, globally. And so Europeans, and their numbers, their birth rate is decreasing, their mortality rate is increasing. So there's a fear of genetic annihilation that's taking place, which motivates them to go about the measures of self-preservation.
So in other words, that these groups that spawned up. Now we're not saying all white people are trying to do this. As we seen on the as we seen in the protests, we seen some white people that was just like, hey man, it was a lot of white people fighting for this thing, man, against this opposition.
And it's always been like that.
It's always been like that, man. So I'm not trying to say nothing like that, but we're saying that genetically there's a response to the situation, that some type of inferiority could be there because of the lack of numbers, as you said, the birth rate and those things like that, the mortality rate. So,
and gene-wise.
Gene-wise, talking about the melanin.
Exactly. When you're dealing with scientific a reality of genetically recessive and genetically dominant genes, the skin or the genes that have melanin within them are dominant, and that's not a racist statement. That's a biological fact.
We talking about biological. So
biological fact.
So you saying if a like, is this the reason why if a black person has
they reproduce with
a European, the baby comes out looking
right, and you can look at that
because the genetic genes are dominant.
Much so, even in enslavement, that was recognized as a black child. I don't know if you saw the movie Freetown Jones.
Right.
Like there was a man that they said he was a white. He looked like a white man,
right?
Because he had a drop of black blood in him. They called it miscegnation, which was you can't intermarry with someone who's considered black, and he didn't have really no traces that looked like he was black, but it was still in him.
So let me say this: when we talk about stuff like this, what I hear typically from the Christian church, the black Christian church, is that this really doesn't matter, and what we need to do is love the people that are suppressing us, and we need to. Matter of fact, I seen a quote of a guy. It was a church. I can't get it correctly, but he was like, just love them through this situation, and as a result of that, love is going to conquer all.
What is your question? What's love? My question would be, what's love?
Well, I think from the Eurocentric perspective that we've been given is, and I asked that question too, because when I talk about the Bible. When people talk about the Bible, they're looking at it from most times from a Western lens.
Man,
and when you talk about love, it's like then being forgiving, forgetting if somebody offends you, letting that go, long suffering. And guess what? I'm not saying none of those things aren't love. Right. What I'm saying is that you see countless times in Scripture where the Messiah, where Yahweh Himself exhibited punishment, and his punishment and his penalties is righteous, and it was an act of love.
Exactly.
And I think so. A lot of times we don't think justice is an act of love, but justice is a necessary component of love.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of times we don't see. So when a believer, when black people seek out justice and they want justice, a lot of times the Eurocentric mindset says, well, just forgive.
Right.
And when you look at forgiveness, all forgiveness is
repentance.
It's predicated on repentance. So, but go ahead there, bro.
Well, 1 Corinthians 13, it says, I'm just not going to read two little phrases. It says, love reckons not the evil, right? And it does not rejoice over the unrighteousness. It doesn't rejoice over unrighteousness. And so there's some accountability that's present, right? There's some form of justice.
Say it one more time, man. I want you to say that again. Doesn't reckon.
It says love, just reading from the phrases, reckons not the evil. It doesn't even acknowledge evil. When Yah created creation, He didn't even acknowledge the darkness. The darkness was non-existent to Him.
Got you.
Because it was, an illusion.
Gotcha.
Racism is an illusion.
Gotcha.
That's an even deeper thing. And then it says it does not rejoice over the unrighteousness. So we call that out. We expose it. We lift its skirt up. You see what I'm saying?
Well, if you do that though, brother, you will come across as the angry black man, and
I heard you last week.
That right there is a. If you come across as the angry black man, black people don't want to deal with you. And sure enough, white people won't want to deal with you because you're too angry. What do you say to a message that
you said it last week? I listened to some of your show last week. Indignancy is a reality. Righteous anger, you know,
right.
and not sinning, as you said last week,
right.
is imperative.
Right.
When you look at the Messiah, Yahushua is what I know him as, when he went into the temple and he turned over the tables, that was a righteous anger. Right. He said, my father's house will not be a den of thieves. Right. It's a house of prayer for all people. So he had an indignancy about him that was zealous.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because there's a passion and fire that burns for his love for the Creator.
I think the problem is oftentimes we depict the Messiah just as a lamb without understanding that he's also a lion.
Clear.
You know, and guess what? It's a time and place for everything. The scriptures always lay on that. Right. That it's a time for justice, it's a time for forgiveness, it's a time for peace. Man, listen, it's a time to be a lamb, and it's a time to be a lion. And guess what a lion does? Man, it defends his ground. You know, you come on his ground, it's going to be a problem. And I don't see that mind state. And I think that's why we're the so-called black church is losing a phenomenal rate of converts in an astronomical way, man. And go ahead,
if I may on that note, you know, what we have to do is to understand it's not about recruitment. A lot of times it's about recruitment. I want you to come to my church.
A lot of times it is about recruitment,
right?
Though. It's not about that, but that's what it is about.
As opposed to becoming a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. That's the reality. This is a national reality. Right. And that's what the scriptures are nationalistic. The scriptures are segregationist, right? Yeah. Because even if you look at Genesis, here's the thing. Yah separates light from darkness. He separates sheep from goats. He separates the righteous from the wicked. He separated Israel from the rest of the nations. He chose Israel. That's a nationalist perspective.
That's very true.
Right?
Very true.
But people don't want to deal with the political reality of the scriptures. The scriptures most significantly, I won't say most significantly, but significantly are a political polemic. Yeah. Not a paradigm. It's a political paradigm.
And that goes back to me with the non-for-profit status church, where as a result of being in bondage with the government, they have muffled their mouth to the political plight of the people of its day. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of my biggest issues with that thing. With that being said, were you about to say something?
I was going to say they've also aligned themselves with their enemy's government.
That's very true.
That's very true. Enemy's kingdom.
Yeah, and put themselves under submission under that government. And so it's when we talk about this thing being systematic, it's a reason why the church isn't effective like they once was in the civil rights period, because the country as a whole seen how effective they are, and they put things in place to stifle that type of activity from transforming or taking place, because they knew that was a change in agent.
Can I
jump in?
I believe the most clear and truest expression of our assembly of our church was during enslavement days, okay? Because that was called the invisible institution. And when you look at like what Nat Turner was doing, when you look at Gabriel Prosser,
hold up, man, he was a bad guy. That's how they paint him, man.
One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right?
Right. That man was a freedom fighter.
Was a freedom fighter. He was a threat to Rome. He was a threat also to the power structure of his own clergy, his own country. He was a threat to them, which is why they had to murder him.
That's very true. So with that being said, bringing this back, the context when we looking at Charlottesville, what is the so-called churches, and we talked about this a little bit, what's the response?
What should be the response?
Okay, let's go and say this. What is the response from what we see, just from an overview? Of course, we can't go into great details, but what have we seen the response from and I talk about black church, a lot, but also the white church. What is the response to this?
I think it's dealing with protests, boycott, not even boycotts, but protests. It's more like, we're gonna march,
Okay.
we're gonna protest, and I'm not saying that's necessarily
Right,
a
right.
bad thing.
I think agitation is needed. I think Dr. Umar
But it
said
has to be
something
understood
real
as a
good.
strategy as opposed
should
to a
be.
lifestyle. That has become a lifestyle for us
Gotcha.
as opposed to a strategy. You see what I'm
Okay.
saying? You
Okay.
got to use laser precision in going about securing not only your liberation but your salvation.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's laser sharp precision. And so what the church is doing is a continued method that we've used in the past, but it has not proven successful. What has protest done for us historically? I'm talking about qualitatively.
Just protest, just
Qualitatively.
Just the agitation.
Yes. What has it qualitatively done for us? Are we a free people? Yes or no?
No, I would say no.
So you have to really measure it.
But
I'm
what
not saying
about
it's
the people?
necessarily a
Yeah,
bad
but
thing.
what about people who do feel like we free? You know what I'm saying?
They need to wake up, bro.
I think so too,
They need
man.
to wake up.
I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have a perception that just like, and we talked about LaDainian Thomas, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
When LaDainian Thomas got up there, for some of y'all don't know, the football player LaDainian Thomas had his Hall of Fame speech, and he said, hey man, I want to basically thank my slave master, my name, Thomason. I just want to thank him because in a sense he was saying this. He was saying that, hey man, we're all immigrants. White people and black people. The only
we
people
were chattel. We weren't no immigrants.
Yeah,
We
who's
were
that other
property.
guy who said we was immigrants, man?
I don't
The
know.
black guy who said we was
Talking about Ben Carson?
Yeah, Ben Carson. When people start giving the view of we immigrants, man,
Right.
it's like, where are you at, bro?
Yeah.
Like you said, we was captives, and that's why. And I like how you said it earlier. How can we really say that we free when we're in captivity and we was brought over here in captivity?
Mm-hmm.
So if there and somebody said, well, what should the response be? And a lot of times people say, well, we need to love and we need to do this. And I say, yeah, love looks like righteous anger. You know what I'm saying? But sin not. And when anger is not sinning, but when you're angry, and this is what I know that I've seen this take place. When you're angry, when you have an emotional struggle, some of the things of the flesh come up to soothe that struggle. Mm-hmm. Meaning, we have liquor stores. We have
vices.
We have vices to soothe that anger. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what's taking place. The things of the flesh are soothing that anger, and instead of letting the anger burn and being manifested in a righteous manner. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes we saying it's bad for me to be angry at all. You know what I'm saying? Is there something wrong with me being angry? Because the way we paint of the Messiah is like he's just this happy-go-lucky
right.
Joel Osteen.
I would just add to that. We can't allow emotion to override our intellect and our reason. Right. You need to have a balanced sense of emotion and intellect. Yes, you can be zealous, but your zeal has to be founded and established.
And I
in
think
knowledge.
that's what the scripture is
In
talking
knowledge.
about. Yeah,
Yes,
like not in rage. You know what I'm saying? Because in rage
Blinds.
is different. Yeah, it blinds. Let me tell you about this conversation I was having with one of the guys, man, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I was, I work as a librarian, as a teen library coordinator, and I'm the security guard, which is a European guy. He asked me, he said, man, why do you work? Why do you work here and this and this? What's the name of your son? And blah blah blah. And I said, my son's name is Noble Zachariah. And he was like, why you name him that? I said, well, I want him to have a heritage that comes from the text, from my ancestry. And the noble part is saying what kind of man I want him to be notified as. And he was like, well, he just asked me about my background. And some way he just said, man, I thought you was he was like, man, I was scared that you was a Hebrew Israelite. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And because I told him, I said, I work with kids. And I work with kids, and I can't work in a rich neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I have to have affection for a poor. And I said, I'm not comfortable with saying I'm a Hebrew Israelite, but I wanted to hear because I need to do more study and research on the XYZ. But I do have an affection for what they're talking about. But you coming from the lens of being a Hebrew Israelite, what brought you to that paradigm, that reality for you?
My heritage.
Your heritage.
You know, one thing that we have to understand is that's something that was stripped from us. You know, our biggest problem is an identity crisis.
Got you.
In North America and really all over the globe, except for Africa, because Africa they still have that tribal consciousness and identity, right?
That's crazy, man.
Crucial. But short story shorter, you know, my research, you know, history, prophecy, culture. There's a lot of literature that talks about it, from Babylon to Timbuktu, Hebrewisms of West Africa. You have Black Jews, you know, the chosen people. There's a whole bunch of books out here that are Black Zion that are out here that talk about the Israelite presence. The African presence of Israelites. You know, and that is the indigenous reality. And so, for me, it was just a return to who I am.
Yeah, because a lot of times people depict the Hebrew Israelites as the dudes that they see on YouTube.
No, we depict ourselves like that.
Okay.
Let me say that. We can do a disservice to ourselves.
Right.
We sabotage ourselves at times because we come up. We're actually,
I would say
we, but there's Hebrew Israelite organizations that are listed as hate groups.
Right. Just like Christianity. Like people will say Jehovah's Witnesses are Christians. But if you talk to a Baptist believer, they'll say, nah, that's not a Christian. So when you see stuff like that, you can't put them all in the same peg and stuff like that.
Right.
But anyway, so I was talking to the guy, man, and he was just telling me like, hey, man, my problem is that you know, if somebody hurts, you know, what I was telling him is like this. I said, man, this is the white officer I was talking to. I said, man, he said, somebody hates, that's wrong. That's just a straight up sin. And I said, I agree. I said, but all hate isn't the same. I said, it's a different type of hate. If I hate you because you have stolen, suppressed, killed, robbed, steal, and destroyed me and my people,
yeah,
and I have a hatred for you, that's different.
That's justified.
From you having a hatred for me because of the color of my skin.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about black people, when we talk about these things, we have to keep these things in context. When you talk about an angry black guy, you want to, as I am, you want to keep me in context. You want to say, does he have something to be angry about? Mm-hmm. And if so, why am I not angry? You know, if it's something to be angered about. And I said, just from there, I was just going to get your thoughts on that, man, because I know you had a lot to share.
You know, hate has its place. Ecclesiastes 3 talks about it. You also have the book of Psalms when David or King David talks about he hates his enemies with the perfect hate.
Right.
You know, and so we got to understand this is about wickedness. It's not about color.
That's what
this is about spirit, light and darkness. This is what we got to really draw the line, because we got some people that look like you and me.
That's very true.
That are more enemies to us than people who don't look like us.
And the scripture says this, and keep on talking. The scripture says this, man, God will tell you he hates those that are workers of iniquity.
Yes, indeed.
Meaning, so if you have a hatred towards somebody who is working in iniquity, that's different from you hating somebody just off of the premise. And it's not necessarily that you hate that person, but since that person chose to tie themselves to the works of iniquity and they embrace that as their reality, then we cannot be cool.
The book of Obadiah says, Jacob I have loved, but Esau, what does he say?
I have hated.
I have hated. Because of Esau's works.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That's what made Esau evil. Is his works. Because he always conspired to annihilate Jacob and his seed.
That's real talk. So with that being said, we got like 3 more minutes, man. Just from the Tulsa point of view, man, bringing it back to Tulsa, because I know we talked about a lot of different things.
Charleston?
My fault. Yeah. Charlottesville. I don't know why I want to keep saying Tulsa. Just what's your thoughts on it, and just kind of bringing this all together, if you could do that in a couple minutes or so.
Just blatantly stated, we got to understand this has been an attack that we've experienced since about, really this goes back to Babylon. Okay, the empires of the 4 beasts in Revelation and in Daniel have always sought to take out the children of Israel. Okay, and so this is nothing more than another concerted effort to annihilate and remove the name of Israel from the face of the earth, so that they will be a nation no more. Because if they remove the covenant people, there's no covenant that the Most High has with earth. And if there's no covenant that the Most High has with earth, then the enemy in his kingdom will be the dominant kingdom. And so this is what this is about. This is about asserting what they call a new world order. Okay? Even Hitler talked about that. This is really the birth of the Fourth Reich.
So you wouldn't say God blessed America then?
Personally, no. No, and objectively even speaking, no. Because of all of the
heinous acts.
Put it this way, the Obama administration in 2016 dropped 26,131 bombs worldwide. Now, who's talking about that? They dropped 26,131 bombs in 2016 alone.
Man. And America has made this picture as we close. America has painted this picture that it's this Captain America's Superman view that they just can't stop helping people in these third world countries, and that's why we in so much war. No, that's not the case, man. They're in a situation because they're trying to milk these countries out of resources, out of colonial. They're spreading the agenda. So what I want y'all to know is that from this hate group, from this national white supremacist group, this is a microcosm of the United States. And
that's the true reflection of it.
This is a true reflection of it. It's the raw, uncut reflection of it. So when you see things like Charlottesville, understand that that's just not a group. This is a greater agenda. That
history proves it.
History proves it. Yes. So we have to be in mind of that, man. So therefore, we want to look at the scriptures, like you said. I like how you said nationalistic standpoint, and if you're looking from a nationalistic standpoint, you can't say you are American. You gotta, or you want to ask, who are you? Yeah. Who are you? Because a lot of times, who are you? Because we know that this is the kingdom of Babylon, man. I would say that emphatically. So with that being said, man, I want to thank my brother for coming out, man.
Thank you for having
me. Show your face on here, man. This is my dude right here. And man, we love y'all, man. This is perfectly flawed. Please leave y'all comments, leave y'all thoughts. Yes, I know I didn't say stuff y'all agree with, but that's the purpose of it.
Stir them waters up. Do your research and find out for yourself. How about that?
Yeah. So with that being said, I love y'all, man.
Peace out. Hey. Shalom.